So as I'm walking over here, so we're in John chapter 19, and we'll be done in a few weeks, and we'll go into Acts after that. But before that, have you ever had a question you wish you could ask somebody about the Bible? Well, we're going to have a little question in this section. I have 2 people have volunteered to answer all our questions. So, just get to thinking of some questions, and I'll have some paper for next week, and then we'll get all the questions together, and then in a few weeks, once we get through John, we'll take a Sunday or 2 and just quiz a couple of folks and let them enlighten us on some things. And those things are always good for discussion too. So let's go through that. Yeah. Well, you can ask questions about Acts before we get there. So, but we are in John chapter 19, and we're going to backtrack a little bit. So we finished with 19. And so, last week we went through in depth the process of scourging, how the process worked. And then today we're going to spend some time talking about how crucifixion worked. I know Brother Freddie got into that a little bit on Wednesday, but we're just going to talk through that a little more. That whole process of crucifixion, the physical aspect of it, and the psychological side of it too. Because it's not just physical, it's also a mental thing. And it's also mental for everybody observing. So we're going to spend some time talking about that. But so let's back up to 17. And he, bearing the cross, went forth into a place of a skull, which is called in the Hebrew, Golgotha, where they crucified him and 2 other with him, let me just start over. Where they crucified him and 2 other with him, on either side one, and Jesus in the middle. All right, let's just talk about the crucifixion process. So, crucifixion process was primarily, it was a thing that Rome did. And initially how the process started was, it started with the scourging. And we went through that yesterday, where they literally beat the individual to the brink of death. And a lot of folks did not get past that part. So they would go through the process, strip them down, beat them, put their robes back on them, and then they would make them carry their cross or the cross beam. Now, I need a volunteer. I need 2 volunteers. Alex and Rennie, will you help me? Sure. Okay, I need you to go to Home Depot and buy me an 8-foot 2x8. And I need you to take Rennie with you, and you need to drop Rennie off at the Catholic Church and let him carry that 2x8 to here.
I can do that.
Can you do that?
I'll ride along behind him.
Yeah, nudge him if he slows down. Because I said that the person who carried the cross, now let's think about this process. You go through scourging. You have to carry the cross beam or the cross knife. We're not sure how, but it's either one. The cross beam is the big thing that they nailed you up to. So probably 8 foot. How much is a 2x8? 8-foot 2x8 weight, Alex? Yeah. So you've been beaten almost to death. You're bleeding from everywhere. And then they expect you to carry a beam or a cross 1/3 of a mile to a 1/2 a mile. That's rough. Getting beat half the night is one thing. Then you have, it's along the same lines of having to go pick out your own hickory. any of y'all have ever experienced that? Where you got in trouble and my mama had an Easter bush in her front yard. And that's where the hickories come from. And thankfully, as a grandchild, Memo never used that punishment on us, because grandparents discipline different than parents do. Does anybody notice that? Well, Memo had a fly swatter. That's what she used. So, but that's essentially what it was. That person they were beaten to almost the brink of death. And at this point, they're going to be sweaty and bleeding trying to carry this. And just so you know, a reference. So from here to the First Baptist Church is 4/10 of a mile. Catholic Church is 3/10 of a mile. The First Baptist Church is 4/10, a half a mile for those who are is past Dr. Hode's office, is where the old Rexall used to be. If you wonder where the old Rexall used to be, when you turn left, go through 1 stop sign, 2 stop signs, and you're going to see a neon sign on the right hanging. And it's the Rexall emblem. A half a mile, that's how far that is. So you do all of this, and you've been scourged, you're carrying that cross for up to half a mile. You're exhausted, you've been up for I don't know how long, because there's no rest during this process. The only rest you get is when they lay you down to fasten you to the cross. How do they fasten you? The cross is behind us. What do I do with my example? All right, life hack. Just so you know, dollar bill. A dollar bill is 6 inches long. If you ever try to measure something, dollar bill is 6 inches long. The spike they used to nail someone to the cross was 6 inches to 9 inches long. So your only rest during this whole time was when they laid you down the cross to drive a 6 to 9 inch nail through the center of your hand or through your wrist. So you're being nailed like this. They're stretching you out as far as you can be stretched out. Then they take your one foot and place it in front of the other. And while you're laying there, you're essentially on your tippy toes. And they nail another spike through both feet that will come through the center of your arch. And once they fasten you, and this is your only rest, and once they fasten you to the tree, they raise you up in the air, and you're essentially standing on your tippy toes, hanging in the air. They have you stretched out so your arms will give out, you'll be paralyzed, and as you go down, your weight of your body presses against your lungs and you cannot breathe. So then you push yourself to take a breath, you have to push yourself up. Now remember, as you're pushing yourself up, there is a 9-inch spike in your feet, and you're having to push yourself up. Every breath becomes a struggle. Every single breath becomes a struggle. There's pain immensely. But there's more. Has anyone ever dealt with rough cut lumber? Go to Home Depot and ask the person, I need some rough cut lumber. If you don't handle it with gloves, you're going to get a splinter. Guaranteed. They have you stretched out on this tree. So your back that has been beaten and bruised and sliced open is now rubbing up and down against that rough timber every time you take a breath. So as you're going up and down, you're getting splinters up and down your back from where they beat you. This is what Jesus went through. This was the death that the high priest and the Jewish leaders sought for Jesus. Now, Jesus didn't last that long on the cross. He gave up the ghost in 3 hours? No, 6 hours? 6 hours on the cross. Most individuals went 24 to 48 hours before they eventually collapsed from exhaustion or dehydration or blood loss and suffocated to death. This is what Jesus went through for us. Barnabas, Barnabas or Barabbas? Barabbas? Get them two backwards all the time. That was the fate for Barabbas. And Jesus took his place. Jesus took his place willingly. He was guilty of this. Jesus was not. When they got Jesus out of the garden, it says, I'm trying to find it. Friend read it there last other night. The hour has come. And Jesus knew this was time, and Jesus went, all this for us. All of this is for us. The next line of the process was, now Jesus passed away before they died, before they got to this point. We'll talk about the verses behind it, but the next phase was to speed the process up. They broke the person's legs. Why they break the legs? Broken legs can't give much support. And you can't push up to breathe. Now, physically, you're bleeding. It's in the hot sun. There's sunburnt. There's being sunburnt. There's being rubbed raw from going up and down your back. Then you throw in the Roman soldiers standing there making fun of you, mocking you, trying to break you mentally. And why was this Rome's chosen source of execution? They could have beheaded somebody just as easy as this. Because it set an example. Because when they saw that person walking through the street, and this is why the Jewish leaders wanted Jesus to die this way. When they saw that individual carrying that cross, looking at him, the physical abuse he's went through, him getting to the cross, knowing the echoing of the nails, the scream of being stuff driven into your flesh. This was a public example of what you're not supposed to do. If you do this, This is what's going to happen to you. This is why Rome chose this. Because it was brutal. You know why some of these Middle Eastern countries don't have a problem with theft? Because they catch you, they're going to cut your hand off. We talked about last week, the kid who did something, I can't remember which Middle Eastern country it was, they caned him. And then, to make sure he doesn't get any type of infections, they stick him in a tub of salt water. Because you know that's going to feel good after you've just been bloodied up on the back. It sets an example. The two thieves on the other side, if you get caught stealing, this is what we're going to do to you. Barabbas was a zealot, causing problems. You cause problems, this is what you want to do. This is exactly what we're going to do. And then Jesus, he was causing problems with the Jewish leaders, shining a light on their sins, contradicting them, threatening their authority, not just their authority with Rome, what power they had, their authority with the people. People had started seeing the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the scribes, all these educated where everyone's supposed to be coming for their answers. Jesus started questioning them and started changing them to look to God and not to them for their answers. Can't have that. So they sought the most brutal way possible to affect his followers. Which it did affect his followers. Because where are they at this time? Peter tries to sneak along behind everything so no one can see him, but what did Peter do? Peter rejected Christ 3 times. You're one of them. No, I'm not. Aren't you one of them? No, I'm not. You talk just like them. And then he curses and denies him again. Other disciples are in hiding. They're just trying to be conspicuous because they see what happened to the master. And they're afraid it could happen to them. The devil thought he wanted this. He thought he had won. Scribes and Pharisees thought they won. But they didn't. And that's what we're celebrating today. So 17. Or we read 19. And Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross. And the writing was, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. This title then read many of the Jews, for the place where Jesus was crucified was nigh to the city, and it was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin. Then said the chief priests of the Jews to Pilate, write not the King of the Jews, but that he said, I am King of the Jews. And Pilate answered, what I have written, I have written. So one thing they would do, their crime was labeled so everyone knew what they did. Now, this is Passover, and everybody who is anybody is in Jerusalem because it's Passover. And this is written in multiple languages. Everyone knew when they read this inscription, it said, King of the Jews, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. The Jews knew who that was. The Romans, some did, some may not have. But if they didn't know, that's putting, okay, if someone gets in trouble at school, or someone gets in trouble at work, aren't you asking what happened? Who that was? What they did? that conversation was happening all over Jerusalem. People who never heard of Jesus read the inscription. Well, what did he do? Jesus' word got spreading in another way. He's on the cross. His word's still being spread by people just curious about what he did. And then you get to the Jewish leaders going to Pilate. Don't put he's the king of the Jews. Put in there, he said he was the king of the Jews. And at this point in time, I think Pilate has had enough of it. I think he has reached his limits. And Pilate is like, this is what I've written. Deal with it. It's the concept of talking with little kids. We've had this discussion. This is what it is. We're not going any further. Because the conversation ends there. There's no back and forth. What Pilate has said is what Pilate has said. And he's not changed his mind at this point because he's had enough of it. They've already persuaded him, kind of blackmailed him into doing something he didn't want to do in the first place. So at this point in time, they have to live with what he does from here. 23. Then the soldiers, when they had crucified Jesus, took his garments and made 4 parts, to every soldier a part, and also his coat. Now the coat was without seam, woven from the top throughout. They said, therefore, among themselves, let us not rend it, but cast lots for it, who it shall be, that the scripture might be fulfilled, which saith, they parted my raiments among them, and for my vesture they did cast lots. These things therefore the soldiers did. 24 is a reference to Psalms 22:18. They parted my garments among them, and cast lots upon my vesture. In 25. Now there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother, and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. Real quick, Mary, the wife of Cleophas. They think this may have been Joseph's sister-in-law. They think Cleophas may have been Joseph's brother, and so this was Jesus' aunt through marriage. That's this one, but she's also one of the people who are at the tomb with Mary also. So this is a little caveat about her, who she is. When Jesus therefore saw his mother and the disciples standing by whom he loved, he saith unto his mother, Woman, behold thy son. Then saith he to the disciple, Behold thy mother. And from that hour, that disciple took her into his own home. So, Jesus knows he's dying. And looks at his mom. When we look at your son, she's referring to John. John, behold thy mother. Jesus knows his time so here is not long. So, and here's the question. Do us as sons have a responsibility to take care of our mom? We do. Jesus is making sure his mom is taken care of. Because she's going to think about this. She's standing there watching her son die a gruesome death. It's going to be rough for a few days. And John's going to be there to help take care of her. After this, Jesus, knowing that all things were now accomplished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, saith, I thirst. Now there was a vessel full of vinegar, and they filled a sponge with vinegar and put it upon Ispas and put it in his mouth. All right, vinegar. Possibly this could be straight up vinegar. However, the Roman soldiers carried a concoction of vinegar, and some herbs and some other things that they kept with them. It's supposed to help with hydration, staying hydrated. Now, what they gave him, one or two things. One, it was straight up vinegar. He said, "I thirst," and this was another way to mock him. Okay, you're thirsty, let's give you some vinegar. Has anybody ever tried to drink vinegar? Or apple cider vinegar, and it has to have the mother. I'm not sure what the mother is, but that's what makes it good. It's horrendous stuff. It is, don't roll your eyes, you know it is. That's one thing it was. Other thing was, it had other additives in it, vinegar, other additives, a mixture of water, and it was a mild painkiller. Basically, honestly, it's trying to fix a broken leg with aspirin at this point. It's just not going to give much relief. Verse 30. When Jesus therefore had finished, When Jesus therefore had received the vinegar, he said, "It is finished." And he bowed his head and he gave up the ghost. The Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that Sabbath was an high day, besought Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away. Then came the soldiers and brake the legs of the first and of the other which was crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was dead already, they brake not his legs. But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came there out blood and water. Why did he pierce his side? Make sure he was really dead. You can fake it. I don't know many people can fake a spear going across your ribs or your belly. Just don't know many people who can fake that and not wince. And that's what they're trying to do there. And when he saw that it was bare record, and his record is true, and he knoweth that he saith true, that he might be believed. Sorry, I butchered that. And he that saw it bear record, and his record is true, and he knoweth that he saith true, that ye might believe. For these things were done, that scripture shall be fulfilled. A bone of him shall not be broken. And again, another scripture said, they shall look on him whom they pierced. And right there, Jesus has died for his mom, his disciples, and the devil, the Pharisees, the high priest think this is all over. Now, I didn't go too in depth about the high day, and if you want some more information about the high day, go back and stream Ray's message on Wednesday. The high day, so in Jewish customs, there's a Sabbath, and then a high day is another Sabbath. So there's multiple high days throughout the year. Now, want some more details, again, go back and listen to Freddie. I won't get into all that. But, as Freddie kind of talked about on Wednesday, that high day, if you add that in there, it probably means Jesus died Wednesday. You also have to take into account Jewish calendar. It changes just a little bit. But at this point in time, everyone thinks he's won. The high priests think they're won. Pilate at this point, Pilate probably feels bad, but it's over with now, so I have nothing to worry about. And that's where we're going to end today. But it's not where it ended. the next few chapters, or next few verses are them getting them off the cross and placing them in the tomb. And then something miraculous happens. He rose. One person, there have been other people rose from the dead, but there's a difference between Jesus rising from the dead and these other people. There was somebody else who was, Jesus spoke to Lazarus and he raised. When they took the guy and set him down in the tomb with Elisha's bones, those bones was enough power or glory we're going to talk about in those bones that man woke up. Ain't nobody except Jesus ever died and woke up on his own. And that's what happened. And then a wonderful thing happened. Shortly thereafter, us Gentiles were accepted in. Reconciliation for the whole world. An explosion happened. And talk about God's plan. 400 years before, when Alexander the Great had taken over Israel, Jewish people spread all over the kingdom. All of the Roman Empire. What is now the Roman Empire? It was the Greek Empire then. When the high priest and them thought they were doing the right thing by persecuting the church, it made them spread out across. All they did was help spread the seed. And God worked a miracle. So we'll end it there. Anybody have anything for a week? Something ready for our 11 o'clock service. I'll say this. If you ever think you're having a bad day, and you get blamed for somebody else's mistake, just go back and read these chapters about Jesus being crucified. He willingly accepted our mistakes that we might live. He will open arm, Lord, just give me strength to get through this. So thank y'all so much for being with us. Hope everybody has a good rest of their Easter. And we'll start getting ready for our 11 o'clock service.